Okay, welcome back to Anatomy with Will. We're starting the nervous system, and if you have watched the videos on the syllabus, you are in for some serious overkill. I'm going to make this quick. We'll get through it together. So, today I'm just doing a video on the spinal cord and spinal nerves and such. And then the next video is going to be about the brain. So be prepared. The central nervous system. If you watched all the videos on YouTube, then this will be potentially overkill. Yes, it will. Central nervous system includes brain, which is the main control and determines such things as memory, speech, and movement. And then spinal cord is the pathway to and from the brain. That would include everything in the central nervous system. So then there's the peripheral nervous system, which is basically made up of all the nerves outside the central nervous system, spinal and cranial. Very simple. So divisions of the peripheral nervous system: you have voluntary nerves and then involuntary. So we're talking like your somatic and autonomic controls and what they affect. Your voluntary would be skeletal muscles, which you choose how to move, and then your smooth muscle, cardiac, and glands, all that kind of stuff that just runs on its own. It's all autopilot, it's involuntary. What we have here is a neuron, and I wish that I could kind of draw on my screen to show you guys specifics. But if you look at the very top, we're going to see the word dendrite. That's pointing to these gangly things. Those are basically where you're going to find receptor sites to from the, gosh, how do I explain this? Dendrites, they're like these tentacles that reach out and receive information. That's a good way. Nucleus is obviously the brain of the cell. Then you have the axon, which is this long cord leading away from the cell. And that is where the information is sent away after it's been received from the dendrites. So the axon is covered with these things called myelin sheaths. They are made up of fat tissues and other insulating substances that can help with the speed of the transmission. If you didn't have these, your transmission would be really slow. It's like when people that have MS, they aren't able to do some of the same things that people without it can, because their neural signals are taking too long to get to where they need to go, and then they end up sweet justice. People texting me. Basically, they speed up the process of that transmission. Whoa, what happened? Where are we going? What? Oh my. Where am I? Right here? Aha! Neuron types. You have sensory neurons and motor neurons. Sensory is known as afferent neurons, conducted. Okay. Let me get my bearings back. Freaking everyone's texting me and giving me messages. I don't need that right now. Okay. Afferent means impulses are conducted to the brain. So they're being brought, think of that. Afferent is being brought to the brain. Efferent is sending signals away from the brain. So motor would be carrying impulses from the central nervous system to your muscles and to your glands. Oh my good. You guys, I'm about to lose it. So sorry. Oh. Okay. We're going to talk about those synapses. Neurons do not work alone. The impulse must be transferred. This little gap is called a synapse, and that is where some of the specialized neurotransmitters are going to be found. Depending on the reaction needed, different molecules will enter receptors. The axon will release acetylcholine to the muscle tissue to start muscle contraction. So some of the popular chemicals that are found are serotonin, dopamine, and acetylcholine. Serotonin is known with like the sunshine and the happiness, dopamine kind of makes you feel good. Acetylcholine is what gets your muscles to contract. These are all neurotransmitters that your nerves are transmitting to the next nerve to determine what signal it's going to be. So it's like, oh, we need muscle contraction, send acetylcholine, send acetylcholine, send acetylcholine. That's what your brain is doing, is saying, hey, send this, send this, send this. So this is kind of a zoomed in thing to show you where the synaptic gap, what it would look like, the actions going on there. To test how quickly this stuff has to happen, you could just test, like, see how fast people can type on the computer, or see how fast people, what's another fast motion that people do? Running, exercising, the little twitches that people have, restless leg syndromes and all that. This stuff is happening so rapidly. In the picture, it just kind of seems like these little molecules are falling gently into the receptors. This stuff is going like quick, quick, quick. If I could snap, then you could. There you go. Quick, quick, quick. So all this stuff is happening relatively quickly. Whatever your brain is trying to send signals for. Some people's brains, they don't send signals for serotonin and dopamine. So people have a lot of pain and they have a lot of sadness. That's just people, Something interesting to take note, ibuprofen, it kind of slows this process down in the synaptic gap so that you don't feel pain as much. Pain reliever, right? So I think we're getting close here to the end. Spinal nerves, we just talked about the general neurons and efferent and afferent and all that stuff. This is where we really get into the efferent, afferent. Spinal nerves are mixed nerves that carry motor neurons and sensory neurons, okay? So the human body, there's 31 pairs of spinal nerves. This is kind of an example here. Each section is broken out into plexuses. So, for example, your brachial plexus there at the top, your brachial plexus, where do you think that's going to innervate? That's going to innervate your brachium. And it's going to send nerves down your arm. Where if you get down into like your intercostal nerves, we know what costals are, right? That's going to innervate more of the muscles of the body wall. So you get the idea, right? This word at the bottom, cauda equina. Equina is referring to like a horse. I think when you see this in real life, it looks like it's bunched up like a horse's tail. So that's why they call it that. So kind of interesting. Coming through here, if you look at this image over here, I want you to find dorsal root. Your dorsal root, we know what dorsal is. It's going to be the posterior side of the body. So this just means it's rooting, or it's just starting there at the dorsal side. But the dorsal root only has sensory info passing through it. So down, if you follow the lines from the dorsal root, there's some sensory receptors in the arm. Let's say that there's a fire in this guy's arm, and it's receiving that input, sending it into the dorsal root, and then that transfers to the brain and back down through the ventral root. And the ventral root is in the front. So we're going to go all the way down to those muscles, and he's going to say, do karate chop motion so you can get out of that fire. That's how you do it. So ventral root only has motor neurons. It's kind of interesting. So now coming down, we have dorsal ramus and ventral ramus. So dorsal ramus innervates the extensors of the back and the skin of the back. That's pretty obvious, right? Because we have dorsal. Dorsal is posterior. So those nerves in the dorsal ramus, they're going to be sent to the back of the body, and then the ventral ramus, everything basically else. We're talking front of the body, we're talking arms, we're talking legs. This is the ventral ramus. Very large interconnected nerves. So I think that's the end of our slideshow today. I'm going to do a video about the brain coming up next, so stay tuned. You guys are amazing. Thanks for watching.